The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm golden glow over the playground. It was the kind of sunset that made everything look magical, even the old, dilapidated park that had seen better days. Long, dark fingers of shadows stretched across the cracked asphalt, creating an eerie pattern that seemed to dance with the fading light. The playground, once a place of joy and laughter, now looked like a stage set for a ghost story. The rusty gate of the old playground creaked like a warning, its metallic groan echoing through the empty park. It was as if the gate itself was trying to tell them to turn back, to leave before it was too late. But the group of friends, led by the fearless or perhaps foolish Max, were determined to explore it. They had heard the stories, the whispers of strange happenings after dark, but that only fueled their curiosity.
I bet you $1 million you won't go in there after dark. Max's voice was filled with a mix of bravado and excitement, his eyes gleaming with the thrill of the challenge.
Now, with a swagger in his step, Max crossed the threshold. He moved with the wild confidence of someone who had something to prove, his heart pounding in his chest. His four friends, less enthusiastic but caught in the web of the dare, reluctantly followed. They exchanged nervous glances, each one silently questioning their decision to come along. The air grew instantly colder, a damp chill that settled deep in their bones. It was as if the playground itself was exhaling a breath of cold air, welcoming them into its eerie embrace. No one mentioned the strange silence. Not yet. It was a silence that seemed to press down on them, making every rustle of leaves and distant creak of metal sound unnaturally loud.
See, nothing to be scared of. Max's voice wavered slightly, betraying the fear he was trying so hard to hide.
Max said, trying to sound brave. He squared his shoulders and took a deep breath, determined to lead by example, but even he couldn't ignore the feeling that unseen eyes were watching their every move. It was a sensation that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. He glanced over his shoulder, half expecting to see something lurking in the gathering gloom. The shadows seemed to shift and move, playing tricks on his eyes. The shadows seemed to twist and writhe, taking on sinister shapes in the fading light. Each step they took seemed to draw them deeper into the unknown, the playground transforming into a labyrinth of fear and mystery. They cautiously entered deeper into the playground. The rusty swings swayed gently despite the absence of a breeze. The merry-go-round creaked rhythmically as if pushed by an invisible hand.
Do you ever feel like someone's watching us?
Don't be such a scaredy cat,
scoffed Max, though his bravado lacked its usual confidence. He couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't alone. He could have sworn he'd heard the echo of laughter, faint and high-pitched, carried on the wind. They passed the sandbox, its once pristine sand, now a dull grey and littered with dead leaves and broken plastic toys. A chill wind swirled around them, and this time Max thought he heard his name being whispered. He spun around, heart pounding, but there was no one there.
Okay, this is creepy even for me,
admitted Jake, usually Max's biggest supporter in their daredevil antics. He kicked at a rusty bucket, sending a shiver through the group. The silence was broken only by the creaking of the swings and the rustling of leaves. Suddenly, Chloe gasped.
Look,
she cried, pointing a trembling finger at the sandbox. A single word had been scrawled in the sand, clearly formed as if by a child's hand. It was a simple word, but chilling in its implication. Leave.
this isn't funny, guys. Let's just go.
But Max, though visibly shaken, was now more determined than ever to see this through. He refused to be scared off by a word in the sand. Ignoring his friend's pleas, Max marched towards the swings. He plopped down on one, the rusty chains groaning under his weight. He started to swing, slowly at first, then higher and higher. The wind whistled past his ears and he thought he heard the laughter again, this time louder, closer.
Max, stop it. Can't you feel it? There's something here.
The other swings began to move, slowly at first, then with increasing speed. It was as if unseen children were joining Max, their ghostly laughter echoing through the empty playground. The temperature plummeted and a thick fog rolled in, cloaking the playground in an eerie silence. The laughter was gone, replaced by a bone-chilling silence that pressed down on them like a physical weight. Panic swelled in their chests. This was no ordinary playground, it was a place of whispers and shadows where the air thrummed with unseen energy.
They could all feel it now, a cold, malevolent presence that sent shivers down their spines.
I want to go home, whimpered Emily, tears streaming down her face.
Even Max had gone pale, his bravado forgotten. He stopped swinging, the chains groaning in protest, but as he went to get up, his blood ran cold.
Standing by the jungle gym, shrouded in the swirling mist, were 3 figures.
Children, their eyes glowing with an unnatural light. They were translucent, shimmering like heat haze, their form shifting and wavering in the mist. Their laughter echoed around the playground, no longer sounding cheerful, but filled with a chilling malice. Max stumbled back, his heart pounding in his chest. The fog around him seemed to thicken, wrapping him in a suffocating embrace. He could barely see his friends through the dense mist, their faces pale with fear. He opened his mouth to speak, but no sound came out. Panic surged through him as he tried again, his voice lost in the eerie silence that surrounded them. The figures drifted closer, their eyes fixed on the terrified teenagers. Each step they took seemed to echo in the stillness, a haunting reminder of their presence. Their laughter was getting louder, more insistent, and the air grew colder, biting at their exposed skin. The chills seemed to seep into their bones, making it hard to move, hard to think.
"We told you to leave." The words were a harsh whisper, cutting through the fog like a knife.
The voice, cold and sharp as broken glass, seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It echoed in their minds, a chilling reminder of the danger they were in. It slithered around them, chilling them to their very core. The mist seemed alive, twisting and turning, as if it had a mind of its own. The children in the mist stretched out their hands, their ethereal fingers closing on empty air. Their eyes were hollow, filled with a sadness that seemed to reach out and touch the living.
This is a bad dream. It has to be. The words were a desperate plea, a hope that they could wake up and find themselves safe at home.
But deep down they all knew it was no dream. The fear in their eyes was too real, the cold too biting. This was all too real. The playground, once a place of joy and laughter, had become a nightmare. The playground, bathed in an unnatural mist, had transformed into a prison, and they were trapped within its spectral grasp. The fog closed in around them, a silent, unyielding barrier that held them captive. Terror lent them speed they didn't know they possessed. They turned and ran, their feet pounding against the ground with a rhythm dictated by pure fear. Scrambling through the fog-choked playground, they could barely see a few feet ahead. The mist was thick, almost tangible, wrapping around them like a suffocating blanket. Their hearts hammered against their ribs, each beat a reminder of the danger lurking behind. Every breath was a struggle, the cold air burning their lungs. The laughter of the children echoed behind them, urging them on. A chilling sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Their unseen pursuers were close behind, the sense of being hunted growing stronger with each passing second.
"This way, hurry!"
Max shouted, leading them towards the gate, his voice barely audible over the cacophony of their own panicked breaths and the eerie laughter. The gate, old and rusty, loomed ahead, the only escape from this nightmare. It seemed to promise safety, but it was still so far away. But the gate seemed miles away, the path endless, stretching out before them like a cruel joke. The ground was uneven, littered with broken bottles and rusty toys, each step a potential hazard. They stumbled and fell, their knees scraping against the rough ground, but they had no time to feel the pain. The ghostly laughter echoed in their ears, a constant reminder of the terror that was just a step behind. Just when they thought they would be caught, when the fear was almost too much to bear, they burst through the gate, the metal creaking as it swung open. Back into the relative safety of the street, the familiar surroundings a stark contrast to the nightmare they had just escaped. They collapsed on the sidewalk, gasping for breath, their clothes torn, their bodies exhausted from the relentless sprint. Their skin was scraped and bruised, each mark a testament to their desperate escape. They didn't dare look back, the fear still too fresh, too real. Terrified of what they might see, they kept their eyes fixed ahead, hoping the nightmare was truly over. They lay there for a long time, the silence of the night broken only by their ragged breaths. Finally, Max sat up, his face pale and drawn.
I think we're safe now.
He stammered, his voice shaking. No one spoke. They were too shaken, too busy catching their breath and clinging to the remnants of their courage. The playground, now shrouded in darkness and mist, seemed to watch them, its silhouette a menacing shadow against the night sky. As they limped home, the weight of their experience pressed down on them. They had glimpsed something dark and terrible that night, something that would forever haunt their dreams. They knew they had been lucky to escape. The next day, the sun shone brightly, banishing the shadows and the fear. But the playground remained a silent sentinel at the edge of town. The gate hung open, the swings swayed gently in the breeze, and the laughter of children, real children this time, carried on the wind. But beneath the surface of normalcy lurked something sinister. The playground waited, its secrets buried deep within its rusty heart. It waited for the next group of curious teenagers, the next thrill-seekers who dared to venture within its gates. And when they did, the cycle would begin again, for the cursed playground never truly forgot, and it was always hungry for new souls to torment.